It is my testimony that the border is secure, and we are working every day, day and night, to increase its security. The challenges that we are experiencing at the border cannot be overstated.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please.
Just a catching strays over here.
You're in for a hell of a show.
Keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs.
It's time for our main event.
Well, welcome back to the Ruthless Friday program. Fellas, that was Secretary Mayorkas long before he was impeached by the House of Representatives. Impeached probably for something like that.
Yeah.
Right?
Turns out it wasn't too secure.
No, it turns out the security was a little bit more in flux than he'd let on.
Hey, he just goofed. You know?
Unbelievable. I mean, this guy, you know what's so funny to me about this entire story? I mean, obviously, they failed to impeach him by one vote last week, and there was nothing but stories about the disaster that was and whatnot. And then they impeached him this week, and it felt kind of like an also-ran type story, like first time in 130 years that's happened. But it's all process-based. It's all like, well, this happened, and then this happened, and here are the arguments. It's like nobody's actually taken the time from a media perspective to be like, it's interesting that they've taken the unprecedented act of impeaching somebody. Maybe we should examine in greater detail why it is that he was impeached. Right? I mean, there's plenty of coverage on the crisis at the border at this point. That's not my objection. His culpability in all of that is like, how do you ignore it?
And there's just no interest by the press. I'm glad you raised this because it is one of the most infuriating aspects of the whole thing. You know that if Mayorkas was a Republican, it would be detailed stories, magazine pieces, features about what he didn't do and what's happening because of it.
Well, it reminds me a little bit of you remember that Bush FEMA director back in the day, Brownie?
Yeah, heck of a job.
Yeah, where he was presiding over Katrina, which is like a generational
famous
hurricane, right? And obviously there were problems going on, but everybody had a lens of mismanagement. It couldn't possibly have been an incredibly specific disaster that hit at the specifically purposeful, terrible spot to hit. It had to be somebody's fault for the whole thing, and it all became Brownie's fault.
Yeah, it's not like he built the levees, right?
Right. This guy showed up 6 months earlier, I pop up tents and serve hot meals.
Yeah.
Right. But if you would have read the stories,
You know what I mean?
if you would have read the stories, you would have thought he actually smoothed the concrete on every single level.
Well, I guess that's my point. My point is that the coverage of that situation, granted, there's a lot of you listening that don't remember all that. I remember it in real time very vividly. But the stories were all about what this guy could have done differently and how it would have prevented the disaster. Well, we have a disaster that many would argue is many, many exponentially times more significant for the country than that was.
Because it's not a natural disaster. It's a disaster that's unfolding before our eyes every single day and has for years.
It's a man-made disaster.
For years.
We did it.
Yeah.
They done it deliberate.
Deliberate.
As we say here on the Variety program. And they're not examining that.
Yeah.
They're examining the process by which, and he's still showing up he was on Sunday shows. You imagine, he's the first guy in 130 years to be impeached as a sitting secretary, and he's doing Sunday shows. No, they're not even afraid about it. It's no, throw him out there. You know what? In fact, top line talking point: Joe Biden is vibrant, focused, thoughtful. You know what I mean? He's not even concerned about his own hide.
This is a great point.
It's really remarkable.
Yeah.
You'd think at some point, everybody would come to the conclusion that perhaps this guy did something wrong here. And maybe that's worth examining. No. It's a crazy Republican caucus that can't shoot straight, as evidenced by their failure the week before to impeach him. And now they did it. And so we won't even cover it. That's just...
I think that's the right take.
I think also it bears kind of focusing in on, I think all the things he did are not out of being incompetent. I think it's ideologically this is where he stood. During confirmation, I remember he was facing some challenges because he, along with so many members of this administration, had worked for, in concert with, left-wing dark money groups. Jen Psaki, another prime example. So much of this administration was put in place by the groups that got Biden elected and to push their ideology and their messaging. Now Jen Psaki's got a TV show. You know? This guy turned the border into absolute chaos because of his ideological, black left-wing dark money donors. Like, it's unbelievable how much of this administration is just acting on behalf of their paymasters.
It's just so sick. It's disgusting. And those are real problems that we ought to be talking about earnestly. But we've got a good show for you. We're going to lighten things up. It's not just going to be all negativity. We've got a good show. Tony Gonzales from the great state of Texas, Texas 23. He's the man on the border. He is the guy whose district is Eagle Pass. And so many places that we've been talking about over the last, now it feels, 3.5 years? It's the entire Biden administration.
Yeah.
Whatever that is. He's the guy who I think almost more than anyone feels the direct impact of this immigration crisis. He also happens to be a remarkably normal human being. It's somebody you'd choose to go have a cocktail with, which, by the way, he's furnished us with some terrific stuff here, which it goes a long way here on the Variety Print.
Absolutely.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
It goes a long way.
We're very easy to bribe.
We're very easy.
Yeah, our bar's very low.
We're very easy. But you're going to love that interview, and I think you're probably going to learn a lot about it. We're going to play a game. We'll play some King of the Hill because it's Thursday.
That's right.
As one does. We got a little bit of variety in there, including some Pop-Tart news, which is very sad. We're just going to meander around with some stuff. Smug wants us to keep it tight because he's very concerned about the security threat.
So this is, I guess we can just jump into this for a minute, but this is wild. You have member of Congress on I think he's the head of the intelligence.
Yeah, he's the chairman of the House Select
and he says,
Committee.
"Wow, there's a imminent dangerous threat that the president should disclose to the country," and then instantly it takes off. Like, what the hell could this be?
Well, it's very unprecedented. You don't see that a lot. Like, typically, intelligence committees and leaders within Congress, which they call the Big Four. The Big Four are the people who get real-time briefings that the administration gets on threats, intel that's important for this national security. Big Four is basically, just think about it, the Republican, Democrat leaders on both sides. And then the 8 is they expand that out into the intelligence committees on both sides. And once that crew has been briefed on something, typically you don't hear a lot about it. If it's something that's very significant, the president addresses it from the Oval. We all know if that doesn't happen between the hours of 1 p.m. and 3 p.m., the chances of that are very slim with this administration. So perhaps, I don't know what he's thinking by airing this out on Twitter. I mean, basically, Turner said there's a grave national security threat, and he urges the Biden administration to declassify pieces of it so we can all see and hear about it. You don't get that very often. You don't see that very often. So again, everybody's mind races to what that could possibly be, and far be it for me to speculate what that would be. But it's concerning.
And then you had Speaker Johnson come out and say, this is not an imminent threat to the United States.
Can you imagine?
Please continue being normal. It's what the hell?
Of all the problems that Mike Johnson's got on his plate, all of a sudden he's got a chairman who's imminent threat. And he's Jesus. He's got to try to warm that over. But my understanding is this. Here's the following. They did the briefings with the Big Four. They've got a briefing scheduled with Turner and the Intel guys tomorrow. Look, I don't have a lot of confidence in the Biden administration, any form or facet. But I think there's plenty of communication going on. Question is, what is it? And whether or not that's something the American people immediately have to be on. Remember, there's a lot of reasons why you don't declassify stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of reasons. Because there are some things that are, well, as we found out during the Bush administration, declassifying things that may not be true can be problematic. Can be problematic.
Well, hopefully by the time this airs, we know more.
Yeah.
Because I want to know.
I bet we won't. I mean, like, again, if this is a decision that needs to come down to the Biden administration providing transparency to the American people, I'd bet against that one, like, every time.
Yeah. I'd bet against that piece of it, but I don't know that I would bet against members that have been briefed that find pieces of this that they can safely
Yeah,
discuss.
we'll see. I mean, these are things that obviously need to be taken seriously, but to a point that was made earlier, the House has not canceled votes for today. So there's not a nuclear weapon pointed at the Capitol.
Perhaps not. So, look, the top story coming out of the politics side of things this week it was the special elections. You'll recall the reason for the marquee event here, which was a New York special election, was George Santos and his eviction from the House of Representatives for a wide variety of issues. But as Smug, as you pointed out, fair to ask whether or not that was ultimately a wise decision.
It seems like an absolute terrible decision now more than ever. Until he's convicted of a crime, I mean, this shows the absolute idiocy of that move. When you have, Menendez from New Jersey, the senator, Democrat senator from New Jersey, who has essentially been just working for foreign governments. News has come out that his wife's engagement ring was a bribe.
It is actually comical how bad it was.
Yeah.
Like, this has been going on for 20 years with Bob Menendez. It started out with, like, the alleged Dominican prostitutes.
Yeah.
And then it moved into money laundering, weird stuff that he ultimately was indicted and then acquitted of in New Jersey. And now it's moved into, like, a whole different level where he had stolen gold bars in his house. Where is it?
Yeah, because he was like, well, if you can't trace the transaction if I'm paid in gold bars.
Yeah, right. And then he was Googling how much is a gold bar worth.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Boomer crime.
And that guy is currently a United States senator.
Bingo.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Until he is voted out, until someone who's taking gold bars from foreign governments, his wife's wedding ring is a bribe.
Yeah.
And did you see, like, Republicans say, oh, this is beyond the pale. This is unacceptable. I can't believe this. That we must act immediately to get this person out of this august body.
Here's the thing.
No,
Smug.
you don't get that. You don't get that. We'll do it to our own, though.
I saw on the House floor Representative Max Miller of Ohio allege that George Santos had defrauded himself and his mother.
Yeah, no, he stole money from another rep.
File the police report, press charges, go to trial.
Okay. I mean, I hear you. It's just, I think, like, that just sort of embraces the politics of nihilism that's driven our country into the ditch where we find ourselves
Well,
today.
I think it's pretty clear that the other side is willing to do whatever it takes to take control, to wield
Oh yeah,
power.
no, I don't
I
deny that
see
they're
any
evil.
point in unilaterally disarming, which is exactly what happened here.
Just be evil too.
To it.
100%. Well, this is the thing: is until you make the situation untenable for the other side,
I hear you.
They don't stop.
I hear you.
And they're laughing. They've got Menendez there for all the votes they need. He's voting. Menendez is voting still.
What is the process for removing someone from the United States Senate? Is it similar to the House? How does
No,
that
it's a
work?
very different situation. It's a very different situation. I mean, they're similar in some ways, but there's more of a process. I mean, what happens is when somebody is indicted, they are removed from the committees. And if they have a chairmanship or something, they're removed. And that's happened with Menendez. But a conviction is when you get, potential. What more than often than not, what happens is you ultimately get a resignation.
Yeah.
You can think of recent examples of things like Al Franken, right?
Yeah.
Torricelli back in the day.
Yeah. Like, you have to have a little bit of, like, class and dignity and then, like, see yourself out.
Yeah,
the House is more like a bar, like a bouncer can just throw you out.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
But I mean, like,
that's exactly.
I think that's the thing is now you see this is a whole new ball game in the sense that look at all the things that the House committee has unearthed on Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. During an election, we were told this is all fake news, it's Russian disinformation, and we've all now been shown We've seen Treasury documents, the suspicious activity reports of all this money from China getting wired over to the Bidens.
You know what?
But still, he's not resigned.
You know what I saw, Smug? You'll love this, and it's related. Is the number one reporter who was covering the Hunter Biden
Oh my
laptop,
God, I saw this.
who put out that story
Is
that
it
said
Natasha Bertrand?
who said that intelligence officials believe Hunter Biden's laptop is Russian disinformation. She just got promoted by CNN.
Yep.
Like her reward for being historically wrong at a critical moment in our democracy is
Meanwhile,
more money.
Catherine Herridge, the
Yeah.
other side of that coin, who's like one of the preeminent intelligence and military reporters,
Like an actual
of
real
our
journalist,
time,
one of the few left.
was fired from CBS this week.
Yeah.
It's just awful. I
What
mean,
a dumpster
partisanship in these supposedly nonpartisan news
and
outlets is getting worse and
Yeah.
worse and worse. And Josh mentioned Bob Torricelli. You remember this guy was a New Jersey senator who was also got caught on corruption, similar to,
Oh, wow.
to what
You wouldn't
Bob
expect that in
Mene-
New Jersey, right?
Similar to what Bob Menendez is doing.
Torricelli
But
in New Jersey?
Oh, Jesus.
No, I didn't think so.
Spaghetts, I'm
He's
sorry.
just in waste management.
This
dude.
is-
the difference with Torricelli is that the media like nailed him to the wall, and and they didn't let up.
It was a
And they
different
didn't
era.
Let up. It was a different era where they were left of center, but they still like hit each other, hit each party equally.
But
and,
to,
like,
but
it's
to,
getting
but
worse
to
and
Smug's
worse.
point, you know what ultimately happened there? He was down the stretch of his own re-election race, and New Jersey Democrats changed the rules so they could replace him on the ballot with former Senator Frank Lautenberg. They took him off with 3 weeks to go, put Lautenberg in. He beat the Republican who had been leading Torricelli up to that point. And
And now there's a train station named after Frank Lautenberg.
But that's the thing. That's my take. It was a terrible move.
It's true.
Republicans are always happy to eat their own, and Dems always circle the wagon.
Well,
that's the
and-
lesson
and-
to take away
and-
from this one.
And listen, that's not the only thing. They also ran Kevin McCarthy out of Congress,
Yeah.
right? And I mean, that's the other reason why we're now at a one-seat majority, is that sucker is also open, and there'll be a special. God, I hope we win it, but it is what it is.
Also shows you how important candidate recruitment is. I mean, like, why in the world is somebody like George Santos the Republican standard bearer for that district anyway?
I mean, because he won.
You know what I mean?
He won.
I know it's
CLF
because he
spent
won.
$0. NRSC spent $0.
I know it's because he won, but
He won.
like we have to build our party and put competent people in these positions so that we
I
aren't
want
in
wins.
this situation.
I want wins.
Yeah,
Well,
That's all that matters.
I
very
want- I want
clear
wins
that
that
what
stay
Smug
wins.
would settle for in terms of your elected representative. But in terms of what happened in New York, Democrat Tom Suozzi won the New York special election. According to NBC News, he's heading back to Congress after he won the special election in New York's 3rd District to replace George Santos. Suozzi's victory Tuesday over Republican Mazie Phillip cuts Republicans' already razor-thin House majority by 1 seat, making legislating even more difficult going forward. It could provide a guide for this is the most important part that I think is sort of interesting. It could provide a guide for Democrats competing in similar competitive districts this fall, especially when it comes to navigating their political vulnerability on immigration and border security. So what Democrats have done a pretty good job of is providing some latitude for Democrats to campaign with the image of their district in mind. Right? They don't have to. The total fealty to like one thing is never that important to them because they figure once they get them into Congress, they all vote the same way anyway, which they do. So how they campaign is totally up to them. Like Republicans, anytime somebody steps out of line at all, they just get dive bombed by the online right.
Like George Santos. Dude, this is exactly what I was saying.
Right.
You
This
win by
dude-
any way you can.
This dude,
Because you just vote with the party anyways.
I mean, this guy basically campaigned as like, a border hawk.
Yeah.
Totally outside of the step of where Democrats are, and that's what got him there. Now, there were some mechanical issues that I think portend a bigger issue that we've talked about a lot on the Variety program, which is Democrats are very good at banking early votes, vote by mail, things like that. And it turns out, what happened Tuesday in New York, Michael?
Oh, a snowstorm. Yeah.
Weird.
It's when you count only on election day turnout as a Republican Party, it's difficult to win elections when Democrats are banking. I think I saw they banked, it was like 86 or 83 to whatever,
Yeah.
was the breakdown of absentee and early.
That is dramatic.
It's a tough thing to overcome. And I saw some innovative things, I must say, in this election. CLF got snowplows out to plow the streets.
Yeah,
try
they're
to
doing
get-
everything they
you
can
know?
do.
But it's just sort of like an indictment of the current system we find ourselves in as Republicans, that Donald Trump discouraged mail-in voting and stuff, and sort of changed a culture in the Republican Party that existed for my entire lifetime, and that is Republicans show up early and they vote, and we're not doing that as much, and we got to dig ourselves out of a hole every election day now, and in places like this where New York was an aberration in 2022, Florida as well. Huge swing for Republicans. We were winning seats that were like D+9, D+10, Mike Lawler comes to mind, things like that. It's going to be hard to recapture that magic we had in a place like New York in 2022, again in 2024, if we don't change on the basic mechanics of the election and start banking votes.
Yeah. Yeah, well, a lot of campaigns are in on it, and people are trying to do as much to try to influence that culture as they can. But again, there's this overriding assumption in the Republican electorate: the only way to vote is voted on election day. And I knew we were in deep shit. I was sitting on the set of Special Report last night at 6:45, and they had a guy in one of the precincts doing a live report. And he was like, "Yeah, this has been open since 7 a.m. I've been sitting here, and this is 6:45 p.m." He's like, so far 22 people have voted today. And it's like amidst of a massive snowstorm. And I'm like, well, I already know what the result's going to be. It was a Republican district, right?
Yeah.
Republican precinct. So anyway, you got to get better at that. We also had this is actually, I think, more significant, not in terms of like federal governance, which is of primary significance, but in terms of election significance. Mm-hmm. Pennsylvania Dems seal House majority with a special election win. Where it was is concerning. This is from Politico. Democrats retain a slim majority in the Pennsylvania House of Representatives on Tuesday after voters elected a former school board member. Everybody knows things have been going great at the schools, so I can see how he had a nice platform to run through. To represent them in a Philadelphia suburb that had been trending more to the left. Jim Prokopiak, I think that's how you say his name, was elected to the Bucks County seat. It will give Democrats a 102-100 majority in the House, and they have sought to defend in 4 special elections in the past year. This was all because of a Republican resignation that happened there. Here's the problem, and this is like just a brief primer on Pennsylvania. Those Philadelphia suburbs, Bucks County, Chester County, Delaware County, are majority makers in statewide elections in Pennsylvania. They're vote rich. They're areas that fundamentally changed during the Reagan Revolution. H.W. Bush overperformed there, and Republicans held it for a large part of the last 30 years, mostly 30 years. In fact, everything from Congress all the way down to your county board seats and everything else, it was all Republican. And then starting in 2016, and then every year afterwards, Republicans have lost those counties. Those counties are huge, high information flow, affluence, the wrong word, but it's definitely middle class, and there are upper class parts of the communities that voted for Republicans for 30 years and all of a sudden stopped and went the other direction. This is the issue that we flagged on this program time and time again, that I understand entirely when you hear people talk about the changing demographic in the Republican Party. It's now a working class party, and I think that's a positive thing. But it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. It really doesn't. There are people whose economic alignment with conservative issues are entirely located within the Republican Party. Democrats have absolutely no pitch to make to these people about their pocketbooks. They have nothing. And yet they've now won it for 6 straight years. You got to ask some questions about that. We are not doing a good enough job. And I don't know anything about the candidates. I don't know anything about the campaign or anything about it. But when you're consistently losing those counties, just put it on your radar. Unless something changes between now and next November, you're going to have a lot of disappointment there. I think a guy like McCormick, who's a Senate candidate there, has got deep resonance in places like that, speaks the language of people that live in those communities, has the capacity to overperform Republican expectations there. But this has happened with too much frequency in states that Republicans need to win the presidency and Senate elections and governor's elections to not be concerned about it. All right?
Yeah, I mean, because it isn't just a Bucks County problem. I mean, it means it's also a Maricopa County problem. It means it's a problem in those counties in the north suburbs of Atlanta.
There you go.
And those are states we have to win to regain the presidency.
Yep.
It's just simple mathematics.
It's a Charlotte problem.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
look, and last night there was also a special in Oklahoma, this area called Edmond, which is on the northern reaches of the Oklahoma City area. And this is a district that Trump won by like 26 points in 2020, and the Republican won last night by 5 points. So it is a real issue that has to be taken seriously if we want to succeed this fall.
And I think, look, I've got more confidence in this Trump campaign for all of the reasons that we've talked about understanding and knowing that that is a demographic you can't alienate. You got to go try to compete for those votes. What has been problematic within the party is you've got a huge segment of the base at this point that has embraced the working class piece, which is great. But they've also done everything they can do to try to say, like, there's no room in this party for anybody with economic concerns. And there's no room in this party for anybody with international concerns or anything else. And what you do is you eliminate a whole bunch of high information flow voters who follow this stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not just about the pothole that's outside of their house. Like, they've got like broader concerns. Perhaps they're in business. Perhaps they're farmers with international trade. Perhaps there's a whole bunch of different things that go into it, but you can't like add by subtraction. Mm-hmm. Like, we just need to just keep broadening this tent a little bit more than we have over the last 6 years, or this is prophetic. It's prophetic. I mean, this is what will happen. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This is what will happen. It's not like...
Which is a disaster.
We
can't have...
18, 20, 22. I mean, we have 3 election cycles where this exact same thing happened. Now you have special elections on a random Tuesday in February. Mm-hmm. The same damn thing happened. Well, everybody's like, it's bad candidate, bad. Not for 6 years. Not for 6 years. Mm-hmm. Like, there's something going wrong there. We need to hear a plan from somebody about how they intend to recapture reliable Republican votes for 30 years in the current iteration of the Republican Party. Just need to do it. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you're all going to be disappointed in November. We're all going to be looking for somebody to blame. We're all, it's the same old story. And it's like, victimization. Look what happened to us. I think that's bullshit. I've never done anything in my life where that is a satisfactory answer. Like, we would have won except for. I just don't understand it. And I don't like to associate with it. So anyway, we're blowing the whistle on that sucker. Keep an eye on it. All right. Should we just play a game?
Yes.
Let's do it now.
Yes, that was so depressing.
Let's play a game.
Holmes, why'd you make me so depressed? You made me say all these things that are just make me angry.
Well, I just, it's like you listen to this program because you want a little bit of truth.
It is true.
If I just wanted to blow sunshine up your skirt,
I appreciate it.
I would go on like fucking Bannon Show or something like that. I would tell you how great everything is if you just close your eyes and think a lot.
Yeah.
But it's not going to change anything.
No.
So, but what does change something is my reigning championship here on King of the Hill.
Well, yes, it is Thursday, and that means the signature game of the variety program, King of the Hill. I'm judge this week.
So handsome.
I'm bailiff. And Ashbrook's a challenger.
Smug being bailiff is always a great wild card. I really appreciate that.
I do too. You never know what you're going to get.
Quite possibly the best bailiff in the history of the game.
Well, I like hearing that.
I just, in transparency's sake, I have to inform the defending champion that the challenger really tried to butter me up today.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
There was extracurriculars?
He came in my office and he brought out the lint roller and he was like, "Can I help you, pal? You got a little lint on your shoulder."
You need a Zen.
Look what he's doing. It's unbelievable.
Okay, so you have our defending champion,
I
right?
do. Yeah, David Frum.
Yeah. And who are you bringing as the challenger, Ashbrook?
I'm bringing an oldie but goodie, Sherry Jacobus.
Oh, wow.
Sherry.
I mean...
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? It's been a while, to be honest.
It's like running into Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs.
It is.
Okay, well, let's go ringside.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please.
It's time for King of the Hill. In the blue corner, fighting out of her own Twitter account, Commie Cherry Jacobus. And now, in the red corner, fighting out of who knows where, David, where did you come from?
Outstanding.
It's always good.
It's always good. Our defending champion goes first in round one.
Okay, Spaghetti, I'm going to go with Exhibit 5 to start things out. This is from David from Putin's last hope is Speaker Mike Johnson.
Holy cow.
Short and sweet.
Holy cow.
Known
7 words. Just the hell with it.
known communist
I don't even
Mike Johnson.
I don't think it even requires commentary.
I'm not going to I'm just going to leave it.
Ashbrook, what do you got for me?
Okay, Nick, let's go to Exhibit 11. And I'm just going to describe, this is a tweet from someone talking about how Melania Trump is good. Okay? And Cherry Jacobus, quote tweets, soft-core, porn, gold-digging, foul-mouthed, plastic idiot who lied about our college degrees, hates fucking Christmas, and keeps her immigration legal status secret like that.
It's a lot. There's a lot there.
This is on top of some unsuspecting random person who says Melania Trump is nice.
What?
Wow.
It's a lot to contend with there.
Well, this is a really tough decision for the judge and jury.
I mean, they're both going unhinged in the first round.
Yeah, and I appreciate that Ashbrook didn't just roll over and give you round one, and he threw back a really strong take. Although with Sherry, you never know. He might have 2 more bangers.
Yeah.
You never know. You never know. The simplicity is what I argue here. It's like Putin last hope is Mike Johnson.
Yeah, I normally agree, and I do believe that, brevity is the soul of wit. However, just that screed and the attack of a woman on a woman in a way that is just so unhinged, I just got to give Sherry round one.
Wow.
The deliberate
That's
bias for Sherry's style is unmistakable in this courtroom.
How dare you, sir?
Yeah.
Outrageous.
I want order.
One more outburst like that, and you're going to be sanctioned by this court.
Oh, you can't do anything to me.
Cut his mic, Spaghetti.
Son of a bitch.
Cut his mic.
I mean, look, let the judge explain this a little bit further. It wasn't just an unhinged take. She put a lot of time in that. Nick, can we put that up again real quick? Softcore, porn, gold-digging, foul-mouthed plastic idiot. I mean, she probably put that in Microsoft Word before she put it out in a tweet.
Yeah.
She really put a lot of thought in that, and I think we need to appreciate that genius of Sherry Jacobus. And for that reason, Ashbrook is, again, the winner of round one. It's on to you for round two.
Your Honor, I know that you're aware of this, but the House of Representatives warned everyone about a national security threat. And I believe it's been declassified with exhibit number 12. Megyn Kelly, whose tweet I will not read, but I will describe. Of course, she's a friend of the program. She's just tweeting about an issue of concern. Cherry Jacobus about Megyn Kelly. Her performative white nationalism is a strategic career move after she tried once for 10 minutes to straddle that fence, and it didn't result in instant success for her. Cherry Jacobus.
Okay. Holmes?
Okay. So I'm going to go with exhibit number 3 here, which I find, again, in its brevity, to be completely hilarious. Meanwhile, Trump looks to plunder the Republican National Committee. Here's the page.
Is this apropos of nothing, or what's it?
Apropos of nothing. Apropos of nothing. It is like he saw a headline and went right to Twitter with it. what's so funny about it is that there is a storied tradition within the Republican Party of any nominee, likely nominee, to begin a transition of a Republican National Committee that they didn't install, to put their own people over there to ensure that they've run a seamless campaign between the campaign and the RNC itself.
So it always happens.
It's happened every cycle I've been alive.
It's what always happens.
It's what always happens. And this is a plundering. Now,
Can I ask one question about that?
Yeah.
Do you have a timestamp what time he dropped that at?
I don't have a timestamp on this one. I wish I did.
Because if I ballpark this, like, I guess it's in the early AM, maybe 1 or 2 AM, which is wild. He's like, can't sleep. Time to send out something crazy.
Plunder. As if David Frum has spent a solitary second of his life thinking about the health and well-being of the Republican National Committee.
Yeah.
Your Honor, my client said that Megyn Kelly is a performative white nationalist as a strategic career move.
But you know the thing is with that take, it's one of Sherry's weak ones where there's like no oomph to it. Like the first one had
oomph?
artifice and gusto, right? It had artistry in there. This one's just like Megyn Kelly is a white nationalist, where it's like no one believes that, no one cares. It's just hot air.
Thank you, Bailiff.
Yeah.
I appreciate your support because I too agree. I think you may think I am biased, Holmes, but I think my threshold for being outraged at a Sherry tweet is actually pretty high. I found that one rather pedestrian for her.
Oh.
And for that reason, Frum's apropos of nothing tweet, it wins round 2.
Like I've always said, this court is a harbinger
Oh,
of
yeah,
fairness.
sure, right.
The
Always.
dictionary definition of integrity.
And I can't disagree.
Okay. Well, I'm trying to get a little different look at all of these variety of things that he's weighed in on here, because I don't like to overlap a whole bunch, but I think this one in particular rises to a level that the hyperbole of it is worthy of in and of itself.
Okay.
I'm going to go with Exhibit 6, Spaghetti. Like the equal fierce fight over the Lend-Lease in 1941, this is a night that will define the U.S. Senate for a century to come. What he's talking about is the passage of the foreign aid to Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan, a very contentious, in modern standards, debate. For those of you new to a little education on the Lend-Lease Act, that is the policy under which the United States supplied the United Kingdom and other allies in preparation for the Second World War.
Yeah.
A little different.
Against Hitler. Yeah. Against Hitler.
So I think in context,
Delves into details.
feels a little hyperbolic from my standpoint.
Well, what I love about it is, the opponents of aid abroad in this situation will tell you we're going to start World War III, and it sounds like David Frum welcomes that.
Wow. Yeah.
Not just welcoming it, it's sort of a premonition in some ways of what he's predicting to come.
My Lord.
The good news for all of you listeners is that David Frum does not have a terrific history in terms of predicting these sort of world events.
Yeah. We'll be greeted as liberators.
Brutal, dude. God, that hurts.
Got him good.
Okay, Exhibit 10, please, Spaghetti. Cherry Jacobus says, since there are precisely 0 things, this is, again, just a reminder, a former Republican. Since there are precisely 0 things to hit Biden on with policy and accomplishments, Garland's team took the cheapest shot and only hit they could. Age. Here's where she gets interesting. Trump is far older physically and mentally, but Garland her went with a dog whistle to scare people about a black woman VP.
Oh my!
That's a bomb, dude.
I mean,
That's a killer.
the brain worms
Yeah.
have wiggled down so deep to the stem of this woman's
They have
brain.
motor function now.
They have totally controlled her fingers. The way that she seamlessly goes from Biden to Garland to Trump to her to then this also being a conspiracy to undercut Kamala Harris.
I'll remind the court the context of this tweet
don't
is
need to remind
immediately following.
You don't need a reminder.
Counsel.
You don't need a reminder.
No, you can't.
May
No,
it
I
please the
think
court.
bailiff. Can we jump in
Immediately
here?
following President Biden's press conference, she says that Trump is older mentally and physically.
I think
Yeah.
a context is well provided.
Yeah, I got that part, but the whole thing is just it's a symphony, and for that reason, we have a new champion.
So here's the
Wow, that was so
Here's
strong.
the thing, when he started with the Garland thing, I thought I was in the ball game here.
Yeah, because Garland is a frequent.
It's a
hot
weird
He's
shot.
hobby
always
horse.
with the Garland stuff, like Garland
Yeah.
is doing X, Y, and Z, and I was like, I'm in the ball game, right up until the last two words of the tweet.
Yeah.
And it was like that all was is some sort of a deeply racist play.
It was like she executed a perfect triple sow cow right at the end.
Oh,
It was like the whole iceberg. You got the lore of like Sherry's against Garland. You got the beginning like, oh, this might be like her usual thing, but no. She always finds new ways to innovate.
Yeah.
I deeply thought I could compete with predicting World War III.
Yeah.
I mean, that wasn't weak at all.
No, I thought I was going to get home.
extremely strong round 3.
You
I
know,
thought I
if-
was going to
if-
get home.
If I had,
But I
this-
just don't know why Ashbrook, even after you won, you just like keep thinking you need to defend it, dude. Like
I'm not defending.
How
I'm
you doing,
I'm just
man?
pointing out things I thought was interesting because if I had the soundboard here, I would press the
Racist.
button and it would be Scott Hamilton saying double axle, triple toe loop.
Spaghetti, can we have a conversation with Lee about this? We've brought this up several times. He seems to be deliberately depriving us of
shows
the
much
soundboard.
stronger without Ashbrook having the soundboard. I like the way things are going.
I don't.
Wow.
He causes problems with
First
it.
of all, it's rude.
He was off with the timing of the theme song every time. I remember that.
I don't want him to do the theme song.
We're talking 300 episodes.
I want the West Wing. I want the racist button.
I'll give it some thought.
I think this show.
give it some What an amazing take.
I'll give it some thought. Wow.
Very kind and deferential.
Yes.
Fellas, William Bill Post, the inventor of Pop-Tarts, is dead at 96. This is a man that has played a little role in all of our formative years by creating the Pop-Tart, the beloved toaster treat, as New York Post phrases it. He died on Saturday, his family announced. He was 96. Michigan native, son of immigrants who worked his way up from a truck washer to a senior vice president. He brightened millions of Americans' mornings with a sweet pastry that hit the shelves in 1964.
He should be able to like they have like a state funeral in the Capitol. He should get that.
You should get
100%. Just for creating the s'more Pop-Tart,
Yeah,
let alone the whole
s'mores.
thing.
The
That one
s'more
alone
Pop-Tart.
earned him that right.
Yeah. S'more Pop-Tarts are kiddie cocaine.
They really are.
Fantastic. Also, just like the cinnamon ones.
Yeah.
And then who can forget?
A more low-key day.
Like classic strawberry frosted.
Which is so good.
Yeah.
And you know what? I want to settle a debate that I've seen rage for a very long time, and I think the science is settled on this one. Pop-Tarts are better than toaster strudels.
Yeah.
They're better than toaster
I
strudels.
don't think there's a question. Is
Yeah.
that
There's
been-
lots of people who are like, oh, well, the toaster strudel's better. No, toaster strudel is absolutely not
Well, the
better.
toaster,
an inferior product?
the toaster strudel requires you to do some work.
Yeah.
It does.
It's like you
You
got to
can
get
get
out the
frosting
icing.
everywhere. The thing can get too hot and turn
It
into like
does.
molten lava when you take a bite into it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Pop-Tart never killed anybody.
Right. If
Yeah.
I wanted to do work in the morning, I'd have an omelet.
There you go.
But the
Bingo,
Pop-Tart's
dude.
the only reason I ate food before I
Yeah.
went to school for every day.
Little something sweet and send you on your way.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, it's very kind. All right. Well, hats
There's
off.
did you guys ever watch Brian Regan? He's a great comedian. He's very funny. He had this joke about Pop-Tarts that on the side of the box there are instructions for how you microwave a Pop-Tart.
What?
he's like microwaving you gotta, people ain't got that kind of time.
Well, that's the thing is like,
In 2 minutes. In 2 minutes.
the Pop-Tart was like the hack for parents who are like very bad at time management.
Oh, yeah.
You know? It's
Yeah.
like, kids, get in the car, I'm throwing these silver packets at you, because you don't even have to throw them in the toaster.
No.
That's an optional step, you
Yeah.
know? Parents, poor at time management, can't make their kids breakfast or whatever, just throw them a Pop-Tart. Here you go, kiddo.
Poor time management.
Let's get you jacked on sugar for the first hour of the day.
Yes.
Send you to your teacher.
Yeah.
More
They got to deal with it, not me.
More parenting lessons from Comfortably Smug. I need to play the clip on this one because I need the context of it before we get into it. Clip 1, if you wouldn't mind, Spaghetts. This is, we'll just get into it.
At a North Carolina aquarium are scratching their heads after a stingray in their lab got suspiciously pregnant. That stingray named Charlotte is expecting, but the aquarium says they don't have any male stingrays in their case. Analysts say there might be 2 ways Charlotte ended up in this condition and won't know until the pups are born. One is a very rare process in which the eggs develop on their own and create a clone of the mother. The second, she was mingling with one of the young sharks that stayed in the tank.
Wait, what?
Last July. Oh,
I also have a lot of questions here.
yeah.
But,
I hope we can keep up with that
you know,
story.
So it seems to me like there are, I agree, two options. The first is there's some kind of a bestiality thing going on, as we've read about in the New York Post over this week. People have been interacting with animals in unspeakable ways. The second is that it's Jesus.
No.
No. It's the Antichrist.
So
Have you seen Omen? This is some
Does
dark
he come
stuff.
back as a stingray?
Sanctus Dominus. No, I don't like. I kind of think it's more like Jurassic Park. You know, Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah.
Life finds a way.
It finds a way.
Because remember, in Jurassic Park, they had only female dinosaurs.
And life
How do you
finds
know
a
they're
way.
female?
Did no one pay attention to the second half of that segment? Like, the dude said that this could be because she was hanging out with sharks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't even know they could crossbreed.
Well,
You got to kill it, dude. Like, you want now sharks with, like,
shark
stingray
stingray?
prods, dude? Like,
Yeah.
you want to further arm these damn things.
No.
We can't take that chance. God knows
No.
what comes out of there.
No, I'm glad you raised that, Smug.
How does a
We can't take
shark
this
bang a
chance.
sting? I mean,
How
I
does
mean,
that
I don't
happen?
think. I mean, it's tough for anyone to kind of fight a shark. You know what I mean?
It's a delicate.
now he's alleging some kind
Like
of an
I
impropriety.
doubt that. Yeah, I bet that shark is a criminal,
Some
as they all are in general. They have no morals. They should all be killed, if you ask me. But like, we can't take the. Imagine the shark stingray, dude. It can't be allowed to happen. Like, first off, it's got these jaws, and then you want to have a stingray too. Like,
Worst possible outcome.
It's a very good point.
Yeah.
What Smash? What is that? Is that I assume that's runs along the lines of the animal war that you've been conducting?
They're doing everything they can to overcome us. And I'm glad that Smug pointed this out because we have to be vigilant, we have to stop them, and we have to continue to ring the alarm here at the people for the protection of people.
Well, because we've been talking a lot about this war, but we've never thought about how the enemy might adapt.
Yes.
Right? And like, if they are starting to invest a lot of their resources into the creation of hybrids with, upgraded weapon systems, because now you've got, a stingray shark hybrid.
it's a stingray, dude.
Yeah, it's
we
gonna.
can't
A
allow that.
stingray.
No
Yeah.
stingrays, dude. Not on my watch.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you.
Apparently, this has happened with Komodo dragons and yellow-bellied water snakes.
Are
Oh.
you for real?
Yeah, no. So you're right to be all over this. We ought to blow.
There's a lot of animals that need to die.
It's in Charlotte.
Yeah, this is
North Carolina?
And this is the problem: is we have a Democrat governor in North Carolina that allows this kind of shit on the board.
I mean, this might be the threat that Mike Turner was alluding to.
I think it might
being
be.
a national security
This
threat.
is what Mike
It's the
Turner was
stingray.
talking
It's
about.
the stingray.
Stingray.
We need an unguided air-to-air missile in Charlotte immediately.
Yeah, where's the genie when you need it?
Oh my God, that's positively ridiculous.
It is in North Carolina.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
Komodo dragon and a what kind
No,
of
no,
thing?
the
No,
stingray. The
that
stingray.
was
the
other
stingray.
things. Just the stingray. Yeah, the stingray is the only thing that I know that is in North Carolina. I don't know of any other immaculate conceptions in Charlotte.
And this thing's an abomination. Bottom line, it's got to go.
Yeah, it's got to go. It's got to go. All right.
And
well,
it's easy to make that happen.
Yeah.
You just pick it up out of the water and throw it on the ground. Then it's done. It does. You don't need a
Quick
long
and
needle.
clean.
Just
No
throw,
blood.
Just throw it in the mulch.
And then one of these.
Job is done. Job is done.
All right. So with that spectacular intro, I think we ought to get to our main event here with our interview with Congressman Tony Gonzales. I want to welcome to the program a good friend of ours, a guy we've had on once before, but it's been a little while. He represents the great state of Texas and Texas 23, Tony Gonzales. How are you, sir?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Listen, man, it's nice to see you here and in person. I think the first time we did this was like over a Zoom or something like that. It's back in our gritty sort of startup garage band days.
Yeah. No, it's good. And it's good for me. Anytime I can get off the hill, I'm in.
Yeah, I bet.
I'm in. It's rough out there.
Well, and you got to work your way through Washington, D.C. to do it. So
know.
it's like, you're going to have.
Glad I made it here alive.
Well, I mean, only a 20-year veteran has confidence in that.
Exactly.
Listen, one of America's heroes, not just in his day job as a congressman, but in the effort that he's had on behalf of all of us in the armed services. Thank you very much for your service in the Navy and everything else.
Of course.
Much appreciated. Listen, a lot of important stuff. Yes. You have been, for better or worse, sort of an emissary to the rest of Congress and the administration on border issues because of where your district is and because you have just sort of a practical take. I remember the first time we talked to you, there was a very real concern that people were expressing about body bags at the border.
Yeah, that's it.
And I remember being shocked by that. Obviously, a lot more interest now than there was initially when everybody thought this was like a right-wing problem, right? Yeah. And now it seems like an everything problem.
Yes.
Left, right, and center seem to be concerned about amazing what happens when it's not just Texas that migrants end up in, that it's all over the country. What's your take?
In my district in particular, people are tired. We're exhausted. We're tired of being on the news. No one heard of Eagle Pass 3 years ago. No one heard of these little towns. And we're just exhausted. But it's not just in Texas. I met with, last week I met with 4 mothers that lost their children to fentanyl. This is the nexus that touches everybody. And it's no longer border communities. It's all throughout the country. There is some form or fashion. Last week I visited the FBI headquarters in San Antonio for one particular reason, to talk about terrorism, counterterrorism, and also to weave in these transnational crimes. So there's this new Venezuelan gang these guys gobble up MS-13 folks. No one's talking about them. They're called Tran de Agua, ADA folks. No one's talking about them now. 3 years from now, we're going to be talking about them. So this is the threat, I think, that has so many people going, wait a second here. We don't feel safe. We don't feel safe.
Well, I mean, look, you were obviously early to this just in terms of proximity, but also your concern and your sort of urging of practical solutions, and nobody could wrap their mind around all of that. We don't seem to be any closer to solutions, particularly with this administration. What are we doing? Like, I mean, I imagine, look, the standoff between Governor Abbott and the federal government, I mean, it just underscores the issue that you've been flagging here all along.
Yeah, the tough thing, too, is, everyone's talking about Shelby Park there. Yeah. That's 1 mile. 1,000 miles to the left and 1,000 miles to the right is open, basically, right? Yeah. So, that's a shiny object, but that isn't going to get you any closer to solving it. I've hosted 22 different CODELs at the border, nearly over 200 members.
Yeah, you're like a concierge.
It's crazy.
Border.
Yeah. I told Caesar's my chief of staff. I told him, hey, if this gig doesn't work out, we'll just be Tony's border tours. And, we got it all locked in.
You get one of those like double-decker buses, then you get out and walk backwards.
Well, I want to see them. I want people to see it unfiltered, untapped, hearing straight from people, the sources. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. I mean, it just changes you. Just does. These stories are they're real, they're gritty, it's ugly. And so we've done a lot of that. Probably, I'd say one of the most effective things that we did is I hosted Elon Musk at the border.
Yeah. I read about that.
And I would kind of just hit a wall. I'm hosting all these people, and more people want to come. Don't get me wrong. They're going, hey, can you host me next week? And I go, nothing has changed. So I reached out to Elon. We got him down, and he, on his phone, very Elon-like, he's like, hey, I'm just going to video us here live and, talk.
Right.
And we I had a sheriff there. I had mayors, just people that lived there. And it was Democrats and Republicans.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like, oh, I stacked the deck with this, that, or the other. And they're just kind of relaying, along with myself, what happened. That video got 110 million views.
That's incredible.
I mean, those aren't Fox watchers. Those aren't CNN watchers. Those aren't, and it's just across the board.
Yeah.
And so I thought that kind of got into the bloodstream. But you hit another point, too, is what about solutions?
Right.
I think everyone can identify the problem now.
Yep.
And the Biden administration can't run away from the problem. What about some damn solutions to fix it?
That's got to be the most frustrating part. Go ahead, John.
It is. Well, I was going to say, I'm so glad that you're down there showing people what exactly is happening, because there's so much misinformation out there on the internet and everywhere else. But if you can see the images for yourself, the images don't lie.
Yes.
What the Border Patrol is doing, they're doing their best to get to get the information out to people. And what we now know is it's not just Guatemalan families coming up for a better life. There are people literally shipping over the Atlantic and shipping over the Pacific, fighting age men from China who are crossing into our country. I mean, the uptick in that has got to have. I mean, you've seen a lot of change in that in your time.
I have, and I was walking through the halls today, and a reporter comes up to me and goes, "Hey, Tony, I'm glad I caught you. Yeah, I'm glad you caught me too, right?" And he goes,
Nothing I love more than talking to the press. It's always a fair shake.
I'm like, you just roaming the halls? Like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm glad I caught you. And he goes, what is your take on the numbers going down in January? And I go, the numbers going down in January? There are 7,000 people crossing illegally. And this is the worst January we've had in the history of our country. Mm-hmm. Is it as bad as December? No, but it's still the worst January in history. So it's a lot of it is how you frame it too. Yeah. And what I've tried to do is just show it unfiltered, untapped, and let people be the judge. And also go, this is wrong on all levels, and how do we make it stop? Now, add politics into it, right? And it's a presidential year, complicated, all these different things. What I've said to House Republicans is, let's take a down payment in 2024, and we come back for the rest when we win the White House. I think we have to do something. We can't just be throwing rocks and yelling at the top of our lungs. People demand something.
Yeah, I mean, this is the point that we've made in the Variety program, which is like, look, it's very unique for the rest of the country to be in a situation where you're like, yeah, well, you know what? We'll just change the president out and we'll fix it. Granted, all that may be true when you look at the record that former President Trump had towards the end of his administration with the success that they had at the border. But that doesn't give any relief to folks like you in a border district who are looking at the next 9 months. Like, what the hell are we supposed to do with this?
Exactly. And we also we can't let the administration run away from this.
Right.
They absolutely wanted this. 2 years ago, the vice president was hosted by a member of Congress Democrat member of Congress in El Paso. They did a press conference there, and that member said, "Welcome to the new Ellis Island." Mm-hmm. Right? They go, this is exactly what they want. So it's systematic. They have to own these policies that are failed. But as Republicans, we can't just be pointing that out. I think we've done a damn good job doing that. Now we got to be the party of solutions. Yeah. Real tangible solutions. What I've said, look, doing nothing, not an option. But doing something just to say you've done something, also not an option, right? What's real, what's tangible? And it's difficult in this political environment. You got so many different people kind of nipping at it. But what I've always told folks is, you're never going to outborder me, right?
Yeah,
I have 823 miles of the southern border. I have 2/3 of Texas-Mexico border. I know this problem set inside and out. 3 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago, I went to Mexico City. I visited with the president of Mexico. I visited with the two leading candidates who are going to be the next president. This is something no one's talking about either. Mexico is about to have a huge election in June. The president, their entire Congress, and 9 governors are up for election. So what's going to happen is essentially they're carrying the Biden administration for a couple rounds, right? They're going to kind of quell everything down a little bit. Security's not too bad. And then I suspect after June, once everything changes back up, let's turn the volume back up. This is
how can the volume get higher?
I know.
I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah.
It's like if this is toning it down.
Exactly.
What the hell is it?
How's the president of Egypt polling in that?
Well, better than Biden is doing. Jeez, man, talk about
Wild. Yeah.
You can't make this stuff up.
I know.
You can't.
And you know what? It's comical, but it also should scare the hell out of us.
Right.
It should.
Right. And then everything that's happening with the SecDef. He's out every other. Clearly, the guy has health issues.
Right.
And all these other, Mayorkas. You go down the list, and you're going, look, it's comical, but it also, like, we're the leader of the free world.
Yeah.
Like, we shouldn't be embarrassed about, our president can't even put a sentence together.
Right. Yeah. So there's some obvious things that the administration and President Biden could do, with a pen right now.
Yes.
Remain in Mexico and all of those sorts
Sure.
of things. And obviously they won't do all of those things, but outside of that, if you had that magic wand and there were 2 or 3 things you would do tomorrow to at least stem the tide between now and Donald Trump being sworn in as the next president of the United States, what would they be?
I think the 2 things I would do is get Biden to resign and then Harris to resign. And then
I was going to say it's got to be a twofer, though.
Was it addition by subtraction?
Yeah.
It's pretty simple. I mean, it really is this simple. And every administration's had to do this. Bush, Clinton, Obama, Trump. It's deport people. If you're here illegally, you don't qualify for asylum, you get deported. And you know what? This administration, you remember the Haitians?
Yeah.
Remember the Haitians under the bridge in Del Rio? It was
Yeah.
like thousands of Haitians. I was there on day 2. I was there.
I mean, a humanitarian crisis.
Oh, it's horrible.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden it went away. Right? Like covered it for 2 weeks and then it went away.
Yeah.
Remember the Eagle Pass, December 20th.
Yeah.
I was there on the ground, thousands of people under the bridge. And then all of a sudden it went away. Well, why did it go away? Because they started to implement these deportations. They're called repatriation flights. You just turn them up a little bit. Doesn't have to be a lot. So what was happening in the case of the Haitians, they were deporting them back to Haiti. And a lot of these Haitians, they weren't living in Haiti anymore. They were living in Chile and Peru.
Oh.
They had
long since moved.
And restarted their life, and then they're like, oh, now's the time to come to the United States.
Yeah.
And they get rid of all their documentation. The messed up part is now we started deporting them back to Haiti. And they're like, no, I'm not from Haiti. I really live in Peru. Too bad. Your ass is getting on a plane and you're going back. And the minute we did that just a little bit, guess what? It all stopped.
Stops the Haitian flow.
Exactly.
Because word spreads.
Word spreads.
And they know that it's over.
Exactly. The border is closed. You can say these things, but you have to do these things.
Right.
It is that simple. And the other part, too, is this administration. What about legal immigration? What about the people that are legally trying to seek, work and legally fleeing, religious and political persecution, like legitimate ones? Those people are getting mixed in with everybody else. So in many cases, they're putting the people that are doing, and it's not just in immigration, it's everything. It's why Americans are so mad. They're putting, you're doing all the things you're supposed to be doing, and all of a sudden you're in the back of the line.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
But somebody who's cheating and doing these things in the front of the line,
Yeah.
like it's turned upside down.
And there's the people that are exploiting the asylum system
yes.
itself, right?
Yes.
I mean, and we need to find a way to basically expedite this system of review for the claims and then deport people back when they clearly don't qualify for asylum as it exists legally, right?
Yes.
I mean, there's a backlog of like 8 years, 10 years, these people aren't getting reviewed, right?
Sure.
So how do we do that?
You essentially, it's rocket dockets work. The last one in is the first one out.
Yeah.
You start doing that, and then you kind of stop the bleeding, if you will. You stop the hemorrhaging. The other piece of it, too, is we need our Border Patrol agents to get back out in the field. They're no longer doing their job.
Yeah, they're out like doing paperwork.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is very systematic. They're from the inside out have changed this organization from a law enforcement agency into a kind of the last chain, if you will, in this human smuggling piece. And it's really unfortunate. So we got to get them back out on the field, catching those bad actors, catching the drug, catching the fentanyl that's killing all our kids. Those are some things that the administration can do today. And they know they can do that, but they choose not to. And that's where we got to hold them accountable. But also, once again, Congress has to find a way to go, hey, look, I sit on the Appropriations Committee, and nothing says I love you but like money or taking money away.
Yeah.
And go, here's the deal. We're not going to play any games. We're going to zero out that account, right? And if you want money for flights, all day long, let's boost that up. If you want money for these soft-sided facilities that are just magnets, you're not getting it. So it's that level of granularity.
You can prioritize.
It's not just like close the border, secure the border. Like, what does that mean?
No, I mean, like what you just described there with the appropriations process is the stuff that like people don't talk about on cable news.
Well, it's almost like he knows how to legislate.
Right.
Is that weird? What are you doing in Congress? That's outrageous.
It's a side hustle.
Yeah.
He figured out the levers and doing stuff?
Wow.
Well, look,
Get out of here.
The border is obviously the biggest issue on the minds of everybody in the country, but you're also a Navy vet.
Yes.
And vets who are coming back from, or who have come back from Afghanistan and from other wars are really struggling in our country. I know you're doing a lot to help them.
Yeah, I spent 20 years in the military, 5 years in Iraq and Afghanistan right after 9/11, and it's something where veterans, they're tough people. They don't usually, you don't know what it takes for a veteran to wake up in the morning, to get up, go through the day, go to bed at night. And you don't always see, they're not always missing an arm or a leg or an eye or something. They're just kind of very resilient people.
Last people to ask for help.
The last people to ask for help. And they're the ones that in many cases need the help. And they get frustrated with the bureaucracy. They're like, you know what, I'm out. So this is something I think, once again, that's not partisan. Like, hey, let's take care of our veterans. They fought for us. We need to fight for them in all things. Not just mental health is a big part of it, but also just resources. And I'd say this too, like my generation is different than other generations. We're not going to the VFW. We're not going to the American Legion and talking about Fallujah and Kandahar. Our generation wants, I just want my meds. I want to take an Uber there. I want to get my meds, and I want to go back and get back on YouTube or Netflix or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's just, you got to tackle the problem different.
So are you saying that the issue there is isolation? It's like there's not as much community as there was maybe 20, 30 years ago with today's veterans that are coming back from these places?
100%. I mean, you're
That's
used
sort
to
of
being
scary.
You're used to being a part of something.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're removed from that. I'll give you a personal example. So today's Lent. I went to church earlier today, and I'm thinking what am I going to give up for Lent, right? And I made the mistake last year. I gave up meat for Lent. And I'm a huge meat eater, right? So I was like, that was the longest 40 days.
You didn't think that totally
I did not think that through, right? And so this year I'm going, all right, what am I going to give up? Is it going to be like something maybe a little easier? And I couldn't think of it. I'm walking, going through all these different things. And the father, I go to St. Joseph's off of Capitol Hill on the Senate side. When I was a Senate side for Marco Rubio, that's the Catholic church I'd go to. So even to this day,
that's where my son was baptized.
No
Absolutely.
way, no way.
Absolutely.
All right, so I was there today. I'm listening to the father, and he goes, not everything's about giving stuff up, right? He goes, it's also about adding to the equation. And so one of the things that he mentioned is try to bring people in your life that have left, that are no longer there. Well, my younger brother, speaking of veterans, I'm tying this in. My younger brother, I hadn't talked to him in 3 years, man. Ever since I got into politics, this happens sadly a lot. Sometimes within your family, you have this division. And so we kind of haven't been talking for 3 years because of politics. And I'm not one of those guys that eats, breathes, and sleeps politics, man. That's,
Yeah, you strike me as one of the very few well-adjusted people in this land.
When I come home, I got 6 kids. When I come home, it's like, hey, grab a kid and get in the
That's your issue. It's not politics.
Yeah.
I get that issue.
Yeah.
So I go, you know what? Well, for Lent, I'm going to reach out to my younger brother, and we're going to reconnect. And you'll like this too. I got a bottle. A friend had given me a bottle of Pappy Van Winkle 23.
Oh, man.
What a great way to reconnect.
I'm not even a big drinker, right? I'm not a big drinker. This guy, my brother's a huge bourbon guy, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, you know what? Pappy is going to bring this family back together. So I tie it in a little bit of faith and everything else, but that's kind of like the veterans that have that were part. He was a veteran. He served in Iraq. That were a part of something. You leave. you gotta find a way to kind of reconnect.
Yeah.
That's so cool. That's a great way to look at that too, by the way.
Yeah.
This guy gave up Twitter for Lent.
Oh,
You
Yeah.
think that's going to last?
I don't know.
I mean, it's not like like giving up meat. It's like giving up head trauma. You know?
He tweeted that, and his actual dad, immediately replied, "You're not even Catholic." So.
Yeah, I mean, which is like,
Oh, man.
I don't know. Is the Vatican going to arrest me? It's like,
You got to love when your dad dunks on you on Twitter.
yeah, no, it's great. It's great. My dad's a character. Yeah.
Well played.
I'm glad to hear that. So, listen, you got all this stuff going, politics in the backdrop of trying to do your day job. Obviously, a big march ahead of you in terms of the appropriations process and everything else. How does that work out? And we get through this without any sort of like government shutdowns and things, or do you think it's just like going to be complicated?
I think we do. I think at least part of the government, we've been working really hard. I think something comes together on that. And this is what I've been arguing is, hey, look, we got a lot of conservative wins in these approach bills on the House. We worked very hard to kind of get as much conservative wins as we possibly could. Take your W.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to get everything. Take your win.
Well, when you got a 1-seat majority.
Well, you got a 1-seat, exactly.
Yeah.
And we just got our ass kicked in New York 3 here.
Yeah.
Like, take your wins when you can get your wins.
Yeah.
And then once again, you come back for the rest. I think that happens. The government, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of people that want to see the government shut down.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's an easy message to deliver to our base.
Yeah.
You know, the spending's out of control, all these woke programs. Like, I get all that, but you don't. The way you defeat them is you zero those accounts out.
Yeah.
You put the money. You don't cut DHS altogether. You go, you're not going to get money for soft-sided facilities, but you're going to get more money for BORTAC.
Yeah.
Those are the guys that are, manhunting and doing all kinds of different things. It's that level, I think, of work that we've done on the House Appropriations Committee. Now let's go get these wins.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good message. I hope you can sell it because I agree. I think a good conservative win where you can take it where you have a 1-seat majority and a minority position in the Senate and obviously the White House, you got to do what you got to do and not give them a weapon to hit over your head in the process.
That's right.
In addition to that, probably helps your people.
Yeah,
Right?
that's right.
I mean, these are the people who need it most.
That's exactly right.
Can't go home and be like, well, we decided to shut it down because it wouldn't give us everything we wanted.
Exactly. How do you think we're going to keep these seats?
Yeah.
Somebody has to be able to go, not only did I identify the problem, but we've done at least 1-2 things to fix it.
Right.
We've built all that out in the approach bills.
Yeah.
We just got to get them over the finish line.
Yeah. Well, listen, Tony, it's refreshing to hear somebody who's actually will take a win. When you get it. There's not, I mean, you look left, right, and center, you get a lot of crazy stuff in politics these days, but it seems to me like anybody who spent the kind of time that you have on the ground, you have no other choice but to try to do everything you can do to provide some solutions.
That's it. And we can't back down. There's too much at stake. And we got to hold people accountable. Our own side, their side. You just got to hold people accountable and keep fighting. It's the minute we just go, oh, this is the new norm. That's what I've been pushing on the border. This cannot be the new norm. When that reporter goes, oh, the numbers are down. I'm like 7,000 last day, and you're trying to pat yourself on the back.
Don't give me good news
You know
on
what
that.
I mean?
Yeah,
And he's
totally.
like, oh man, you can just see his world deflated. It's like, here's the deal, man. This goes away when you keep pushing for it. But you know what, man? I will say there's a lot of good, solid members on the Hill that truly want to find solutions and deliver. It's just the politics gets in the way, and you got to have people bold enough to be able to go, no. We're not. This nothing squishy about this, that, or the other. Like we're delivering conservative wins. We take a little bit at a time.
Yeah, no question. Brass tacks politics. A lot of discussion over the last 4 years about your region of Texas in particular and kind of the changing political environment. How do you think that all breaks down in the context of 2024? I mean, clearly the border is issue A1A. I imagine there's economic issues associated with all of that, and then just larger. You think, like, does Trump win your district, you think, in 24?
Yeah, no doubt. He won the last time. It was close. I think a little over 1%.
I mean, it's right on that razor's edge where you got to ask, you know?
Yeah, it really is. It really is. But my district's over 70% Hispanic. So I mean, it's Mexican American. It's important to know like the different Puerto Ricans are different,
totally.
Cubans, and I mean, just everyone's different in there.
Amazing how the left just shorthands
throws
that.
you all in there. You're all Latinx. You're like, what? I've never heard that before, but okay.
It sounds Spanish. They're all the same.
So yeah, exactly. But this is the interesting part, and this is what I've been telling folks is Latinos are all over the country, and they're not. We're talking about Texas and Southern Florida and New York and California, but now they're everywhere, man.
Yeah.
They're absolutely everywhere, and this is, I think, a block. We can win places that you don't expect if we just. That'll be the margin that gets us over the finish line. And you know what? We don't have to change a damn thing. You just tell them this is what we stand for.
Go compete.
We go compete, and you show up.
Yeah.
That's how we win over and over again. You show up. The other side ain't going to show up.
No.
The other side, they've gotten so crazy on the other side. People are going like, "Hey, man, that's. I mean, I'm a lifelong Democrat, but that's insane."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think.
Well, and that's the thing, right? In these multi-generational communities that you're talking about, there has been a history of voting Democrat because it's what you do.
Yeah.
And now, because of being a multi-generational community, you look at it and you're like, it doesn't seem like those guys are totally representative of things I'm
Then you
interested
wheel
in.
out Biden, right? He stumbles over his, 2 sentences, and you're like, yeah, no, I'm out.
This guy ain't exactly Dua Lipa.
Exactly.
I mean, it is incredible to me that they just sort of take this vote for granted over and over again. But I think because of guys like you, there has been not only progress made on educating people on the issues, but showing up.
You got to show
Just
up.
showing up and competing for the vote.
That's it.
And changing these communities as a result.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really exciting. I think you're going to see the next generation of conservatives come on board, and it has nothing to do with where you're from or your background. It has everything. Shocker, goes back to our principles, right?
Yeah.
What we stand for and delivering and all that. So I'm really excited about the future of kind of where things are
Timeless stuff.
Yeah.
Listen, if our listeners want to help you out, obviously because of the critical role you play in serving up conservative victories where you can get it, it makes you a target. And that's in the political arena, something you got to fight back against. And so our listeners have always been interested in that. If they want to help you out, where do they go?
Tony Gonzales for Congress. Tony for Texas is my Twitter handle. Just get involved. We have our weekly newsletter. We try to give real things, what's happening. There's so much just misinformation and lies, and everything gets spun. And we try to give people the ground truth. These videos that we're showing of real people on the ground, what's happening, and we're just going to keep doing that. We're not going to push back, right, left, center. I love this country, man.
Yeah.
I've always served this country. I will always serve this country to my very last breath. And I think we need more of that just aren't afraid. Aren't afraid to win.
Yeah.
You're not afraid to win. A lot of people in this town, they just don't want to lose.
Yeah.
It's not about losing. It's like you cannot be afraid to win. Take a win when you can get a win.
Yeah, it's just very well said.
Love that.
And at some point, maybe enough people contribute where you can get duck boats down there at the border. You can do the full walking tour.
TG's duck boats.
Listen, Tony Gonzales, thank you so much.
Awesome.
Really appreciate it.
Thanks, brother.
It's impossible not to like this guy. He is thoughtful. He served our military in the Navy for 20 years. He was highly decorated, by the way. Iraq, Afghanistan. I mean, you notice he never talks about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like he had to kind of pry it out of him with his work on behalf of vets because he's not like the kind of guy that just goes around talking about his service. Like he just sees it as part of his personality. I mean, it's to know guys like this, and all of you are listening, you know somebody like this that is just like one of those service-oriented people, just wants to help people. This is one of those guys. I just have total respect for him. I think he's really, really good at what he does. I think more people ought to listen to people like him. And he's also the guy who's standing like in the absolute
right there.
Yeah.
worst possible place for what we've seen on our southern border.
Right. Yeah. Everybody watches and follows Bill Melugin at Eagle Pass.
Yeah.
And he's the congressman he's basically Bill Melugin's congressman now.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, I guarantee you that they are very close at this point. he's everywhere.
Yeah.
Anytime there's anything, he's there in the district, spends a lot of time doing it, and that's how you get that perspective.
And it's a tough district, and it's one of those that really is a majority maker.
Yeah.
So go to his website, chip in, get involved.
Yeah, help him out.
These are the races that matter the most. I think the stuff he was saying about veterans is very, very, very important.
Yep.
Especially the stuff about these veterans who've come home from Afghanistan and Iraq and are like isolated.
Yep.
It's important stuff.
Guy's in it for the right reasons. Go to his website. Help him if you can. With all that, it's been a hell of a week. I imagine next week will greet us with something similar, and off we go. But I think we've done it.
I think so. Absolute banger of an episode, gentlemen. Again, thank you so much, Representative Gonzales, bringing your insight to the show. And thank you so much to the Minions. Don't forget, subscribe on YouTube and see us in video on top of audio. So, until next time, Minions, keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs. We'll see you on Tuesday. Stay ruthless.